My son ambushed me during a family lunch with my pregnant daughter-in-law and demanded that I transfer the ownership of my penthouse to her so they could start a new life. Sign, or we are going to sue you. Brandon pushed the documents across the table with such force that my wine glass almost tipped over. Kayla, my daughter-in-law, was crying next to him, clutching her belly as if she were about to give birth right there in the middle of the crowded cheesecake factory. We need that penthouse, Mom. Kayla is pregnant. We cannot raise your granddaughter in a 2-bedroom apartment. You live alone. You have plenty of room. It is only fair. Fair. That word went through me like a bullet. I had paid $445,000 in 60 mortgage installments for that penthouse. 60 months of sacrifice. 60 months working double shifts as a registered nurse after my husband died. And now my son, my only son, was demanding I gift it to his wife like it was a pair of old shoes. I am not signing anything, Brandon. That penthouse is mine. I paid for it on my own. My son's face hardened. Kayla sobbed louder. Then we will see you in court, Mom. We are going to sue you for negligence, for lack of family support, for denying a dignified future to your own granddaughter. They walked out of the restaurant, leaving me there, shaking, with the documents in front of me and the stares of all the diners burning into my back. I was the villain, the cruel grandmother denying a roof to her granddaughter. But what they did not know, what I was about to discover, was that my son and daughter-in-law had $820,000 in secret debt, that they had planned all of this for months, that my lawyer was going to reveal a scheme so twisted that even Kayla's attorney would turn pale when she saw the evidence, and that when it was all over, my son would be begging me for forgiveness. But let us go back to the beginning, because to understand why I did what I did, you need to know who I really am, and how I came to own that penthouse that everyone wanted to snatch from me. Grab something to drink. This is going to be a long one. And if anyone ever tried to make you feel guilty for protecting what you built, stay until the end. Because this story has a twist nobody saw coming. My name is Diane. I am 61 years old. I am a widow. I am a nurse. And this is the story of how my own son tried to rob me of everything I have. 35 years ago, when I was 26, I married Robert. We were broke. We lived in a 1-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood where sirens wailed every night. But we were happy. Robert worked at a textile factory in the Rust Belt, and I had just finished my nursing degree. We had a dream. To buy our own house, a place where we could raise our kids, a place that was ours. When Brandon was born, I was 28. It was the happiest day of my life. My baby. My only son. Robert cried tears of joy in the delivery room. This boy is going to have everything we did not have, Diane. Everything. And we kept that promise. Maybe too well. Brandon grew up being the center of our universe. We gave him everything. New clothes every season. Toys we never had. Soccer camps. Private tutoring. A computer when we could barely pay the rent. Robert worked 12 hours a day. I pulled night shifts at the hospital. All so Brandon would not feel that we were working class. When Brandon turned 18, we bought him his first car. $10,000 that we took from our retirement savings. It was a used Honda, but it ran perfectly. He totaled it 6 months later, driving drunk with his friends. He cried. He apologized. He promised he would never do it again. We bought him another car. When Brandon got into college, we paid his full tuition. $32,000 over 4 years. He failed 3 semesters because he preferred partying at the frat house to studying. Robert told me it was normal, that all young men went through that phase. I silenced my worry. Finally, he graduated, with mediocre grades and no clear life plan. And then, Robert died. A massive heart attack. He collapsed on the factory floor on a Tuesday at 3 in the afternoon. He was 52 years old. I was 53. Brandon was 25. The world stopped. I was left alone, with a small pension, with Brandon's college loans, still without a house of my own, living in that same 1-bedroom apartment where we had started 30 years prior. But I had Robert's life insurance. $120,000. Brandon showed up at my door 3 days after the funeral. Mom, I need help. I want to start a business, a coffee shop. I have always dreamed of that. Dad would have wanted me to chase my dreams. I gave him $40,000. The coffee shop closed in 8 months. Brandon came back. Mom, I met someone. Her name is Kayla. She is amazing. I think she is the one. We want to get married. I need help for the down payment on a condo. I gave him another $30,000. I had $50,000 left from Robert's insurance. $50,000 and 8 years of widowhood ahead of me. 8 years working double shifts. 8 years saving every penny. 8 years telling myself that someday, I would have my own place too, and I did it. 3 years ago, I found the Penthouse. It was pre-construction, a new building in a downtown area that was starting to gentrify. 4,000 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a terrace with a view of the city skyline. $500,000. I used my $50,000 as a down payment. The bank approved a mortgage of $450,000 for 20 years. I was 58 years old. I was going to finish paying when I was 78. But I did not care. It was mine. It was going to be mine. I signed the papers with tears in my eyes. Robert, this is for us. We finally made it. Brandon came to the housewarming party with Kayla. Congratulations. Mom, you deserve it. Kayla smiled, but I noticed something in her eyes, something I could not identify at that moment. Over the next 3 years, I paid the mortgage religiously, $7,400 a month. I worked until my feet bled. I took every overtime shift available. I lived on the bare minimum, but every month, without fail, I paid 60 installments, $445,000 paid down. And then came that lunch, that ambush, that moment when my son ceased to be my son and became a stranger who wanted to take everything from me. Sign or we sue you. I walked out of the restaurant without touching my food. I got to my penthouse shaking. I sat on the terrace looking at the city and cried like I had not cried since Robert's funeral. What had I done wrong? Where had I messed up? My phone started ringing that same night. The messages started coming in like an avalanche. Aunt Diane, is it true you denied the penthouse to Brandon? Kayla is pregnant. How can you be so selfish? It was my cousin Carol, a woman who had not spoken to me in 5 years, but now had a lot of opinions about my life. Then came a voicemail from my sister-in-law, Janet. Diane, I understand it is your property, but think about the baby. Brandon and Kayla are starting a family. You already lived your life. Do you not think it is time to be generous? Robert would be disappointed in you. That broke me. Robert would be disappointed, as if she knew what Robert would think. As if she had been there when we worked 14 hours a day to give everything to Brandon. As if she understood what that penthouse meant to me. I blocked her number. But the messages kept coming. Acquaintances, family friends. People who barely spoke to me. Everyone had an opinion. Everyone believed I was the villain of this story. And then the letter arrived. It was from a law firm, Miller and Associates. The envelope was thick, official, threatening. I opened it with trembling hands at my kitchen table. Dear Miss Diane Miller, we represent Mr. Brandon Miller and Mrs. Kayla Miller in a matter of urgent family necessity. Our clients have attempted to resolve this matter amicably, but you have refused to cooperate. We inform you that we will proceed with legal action for lack of family support and emotional negligence toward your future granddaughter if an agreement is not reached within the next 10 business days. Emotional negligence. Those words danced before my eyes. How could refusing to transfer a deed be emotional negligence? I called Brandon. My voice was shaking. Are you seriously suing me? Did we really get to this point? He sounded tired. I did not want to get to this, Mom. But you left us no choice. Kayla cries every day. She is stressed. Stress is bad for the baby. All of this is your fault. My fault. Again. Always my fault. Brandon. I worked 35 years to have this penthouse. I paid $445,000. It is my nest egg. It is my security for when I can no longer work. I cannot just give it away. Then you are selfish. Mom, you are a selfish woman who prefers her material things over the happiness of her own family. He hung up. I stood there looking at the phone. My son. My only son. The boy whose diapers I changed. The boy I taught to walk. The boy for whom Robert and I sacrificed everything. He had just called me selfish because I did not want to give away my home. That night I could not sleep. I walked through the penthouse like a ghost. These walls, this floor, this terrace, every inch had been paid for with my sweat, with my tears, with 16-hour shifts at the hospital treating patients while my feet swelled inside my shoes. And now they were telling me I was selfish for wanting to keep it. The next morning, another letter arrived, this time directly from Kayla's lawyer, Miss Peterson. She claimed to be a specialist in family law. Her letter was more aggressive. She talked about the rights of the unborn granddaughter, about the moral obligations of grandparents, about legal precedents where grandparents had been forced to provide dignified housing. I felt like the walls were closing in on me. I went to work that day like a zombie. My coworkers noticed something was wrong. "Are you okay, Diane? You look terrible." I told them I was fine, that it was just fatigue. But inside I was crumbling. During my afternoon shift, while checking a patient's vitals, my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. It contained a screenshot from Facebook. It was a post by Kayla. The image showed her hand on her belly. The caption read, "When your own family turns their back on you in the moment you need them most, when you have to beg for a roof for your baby, when selfishness is stronger than love. But we will keep moving forward. Our angel deserves a better world." It had 342 likes, 176 comments. I read them all. Each one was a dagger. How terrible. Grandparents should always support. Old people are so selfish. They cling to their stuff as if they are going to take it to the grave. Poor Kayla. You deserve the best. Your mother-in-law should be ashamed. Nobody knew my side. Nobody knew that Penthouse represented 35 years of my life. Nobody knew I had sacrificed everything for my son. They only knew what Kayla had told them, that I was a cruel old woman living alone in a huge space while denying help to them. I locked myself in the hospital bathroom and cried. I cried until I had no tears left. When I returned home that night, I found another message, this time from Brandon. "Look what you caused, Mom. Kayla is devastated. She had false contractions today due to the stress. The doctor said if she does not calm down, there could be complications. If something happens to my daughter, it will be your fault." My fault, again. Always my fault. I poured myself a glass of wine. I sat on the terrace. The city glittered below. The lights flickered like fallen stars. "Robert, what do I do? What am I supposed to do?" The silence was my only answer. 3 days passed. 3 days of messages. 3 days of calls from relatives. 3 days of feeling like the worst person in the world. Carol texted me again. "Diane, just give them the penthouse. You do not need it. You are one person. They are going to be 3. It is the right thing to do. The right thing." Everyone knew what was right. Except me, apparently. Janet called. "Diane, be reasonable. Brandon is your only son. Are you really going to destroy your relationship with him over a condo? When you are old and alone, who is going to take care of you? Think about it carefully." So that was it. Either I gave away my penthouse, or I ended up alone forever. That was the ultimatum, disguised as family advice. That night, while making dinner, the doorbell rang. I opened the door. It was Brandon. He was alone. He looked tired, haggard. I almost felt pity. "Can we talk, Mom?" I let him in. He sat on the living room sofa, the same sofa I had bought 3 years ago when I moved in. He looked around as if seeing the place for the first time. "It is nice here," he said. "Really nice. Kayla is right. There is a lot of space. I did not come to discuss that." "Brandon," he sighed. "Look, Mom, I know you worked hard for this place. I get it. But we are working hard too, and we are going to have a baby. Your granddaughter. Do you not want your granddaughter to grow up in a dignified place? You guys have your apartment, a 2-bedroom apartment. Mom, 2 bedrooms. Where are we going to put the crib? Where are we going to put her toys when she grows up? In our room?" "Brandon, millions of families raise kids in small spaces. You grew up in a 1-bedroom apartment, and you survived." His expression changed. It hardened. "Exactly. Mom, I grew up in a horrible apartment. And you know what? I hated every second of it. I hated not having my own space. I hated sharing a room with you guys until I was 12. I hated being the poor kid at school, I am not going to make my daughter go through that. His words hit me like stones. Horrible apartment. Poor kid. Everything Robert and I had sacrificed. Everything we had given. And to him, we were just bitter memories. So, everything we did for you meant nothing? Of course it meant something, Mom. That is why I am giving you the opportunity to redeem yourself. To give your granddaughter what you could not give me. Redeem myself. As if I had committed a crime. As if being poor had been my fault. Get out, Brandon. What? Get out of my house. Now. He stood up. His eyes shone with rage. Fine, Mom. You wanted it this way. See you in court. He slammed the door on his way out. I stood there in the middle of my living room, in the middle of my penthouse, in the middle of everything I had built, and for the first time since this nightmare started, I felt something different. It was not guilt. It was not sadness. It was fury. The fury burned inside me like liquid fire. I stayed awake all that night. I could not sleep. I could not think of anything other than Brandon's words. Redeem yourself. Horrible apartment. Poor kid. As if Robert and I had not given every drop of our life for him. As if our love had not been enough because we did not have money. At 6 a.m, I made a decision. I was not going to let them destroy me. I was not going to give away what cost me 35 years to build. And I definitely was not going to let them threaten me without fighting back. I searched online. Lawyers specializing in family law. I read reviews, compared prices. I needed someone good. Someone who understood that this was not just about a penthouse. It was about my entire life. I found Mr. Harrison. He had a small firm, but the reviews were excellent. Specialist in family conflict and assets. I called his office as soon as they opened. The secretary gave me an appointment for that same afternoon. At 4 o'clock sharp, I was sitting across from Mr. Harrison's desk. He was a man in his 50s, gray-haired, with rectangular glasses and a serious but kind expression. Tell me everything from the beginning, Miss Diane. Do not hold anything back. And I told him about Robert, about Brandon, about the $40,000 for the coffee shop, the $30,000 for the apartment, the $445,000 I had paid for the penthouse, the ambush at the restaurant, the messages, the legal threats, Kayla's Facebook post, everything. Mr. Harrison took notes in a worn leather notebook. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and looked at me over his glasses. Miss Diane, do you have all the mortgage payment receipts? Yes. All of them. 60 receipts. Do you have proof of the transfers you made to your son? The $40,000 and the $30,000. Yes. They are in my bank statements. Perfect. Now tell me something. Do your son and daughter-in-law work? Brandon works at a logistics company. Kayla is a graphic designer. Freelance. Do you know approximately how much they earn? Brandon makes about $4,000 a month. Kayla, I am not sure. Maybe $2,000, when she has projects. Mr. Harrison wrote something down. So, with $6,000 a month, they should be able to live comfortably. Do you know if they have debts? I do not know. We never talk about that. He leaned forward. Miss Diane, I am going to be direct with you. Legally, they have no right to your property. You bought it with your money. You have been paying for it alone. There is no law obligating grandparents to provide housing for grandchildren. That is an invention. Emotional blackmail, but they have lawyers. They sent me letters. Letters that are worthless. They are intimidation tactics. They want to scare you into caving. But if this goes to court, which I doubt very much, they would lose automatically. Then why do they do it? Why risk a lawsuit they cannot win? Mr. Harrison took off his glasses and cleaned them with a handkerchief. Because there is something else behind this. Nobody fights this aggressively for something without an urgent reason. Your son and daughter-in-law need that penthouse for more than just space, and I need to find out what it is. How? Let me investigate. I have contacts. I can request basic financial information, review public records, see if there are prior lawsuits, liens, that sort of thing. Give me a week. I accepted. I gave him a retainer of $3,000. I left his office feeling different, lighter, as if someone had finally told me I was not crazy, that I had the right to defend what was mine. That night I slept better than I had in days. But the peace was short-lived. The next day, Saturday, another certified letter arrived. This time it was a formal subpoena. Brandon and Kayla were proceeding with the lawsuit. They were requesting a preliminary hearing. They accused me of moral abandonment, lack of family support, and putting the unborn baby at emotional risk. I called Mr. Harrison immediately. He calmed me down. It is normal. It is part of the intimidation process. Do not worry. We will respond legally. In the meantime, do not talk to them. Do not answer texts. Nothing. Everything goes through me now. I followed his advice. I blocked Brandon's number. I blocked Kayla's. I blocked Carol, Janet, everyone who had been harassing me. If they wanted to talk to me, they could do it through Mr. Harrison. The next few days were strangely quiet. I went to work, came home, waited. Mr. Harrison texted me every 2 days to tell me he was investigating, that he had found some interesting things, that he needed to confirm data. On Wednesday of that week, Mr. Harrison called me. Miss Diane, can you come to my office tomorrow first thing? I need to show you something. His voice sounded different, tenser, more serious. What happened? I prefer you see it yourself. I could not sleep that night. What had he found? Was it something bad? Something that hurt me? My mind created terrible scenarios. Maybe Brandon had forged documents proving I had promised him the penthouse. Maybe there were testimonies from people saying I was a bad mother. I arrived at Mr. Harrison's office at 8 in the morning. He was already there. He had a thick folder on his desk. His expression was serious, but there was something in his eyes, something resembling satisfaction. Sit down, Miss Diane. This is going to take a while. I sat down. My heart was beating so fast I could hear it in my ears. Mr. Harrison opened the folder. He started pulling out documents, one by one. He placed them in front of me while explaining. This is a credit report for your son, Brandon. I obtained it legally through appropriate channels for court cases. Here you can see he has 3 credit cards maxed out, $28,000 on one, $35,000 on another, $42,000 on the third. Total, $105,000 in credit card debt. I felt the air leave my lungs. But that is not all. Here is a personal loan from a bank, $80,000. He took it out 2 years ago, apparently to invest in a business that never took off. Here is another loan, from a predatory lender, $60,000, interest at 32% annually. The numbers danced before my eyes. I could not process them. Mr. Harrison continued. Here is the financing for Kayla's car, a luxury SUV, $65,000, monthly payments of $1,200. And look at this. This is interesting. Transaction records on online betting platforms, virtual casino, poker, sports betting. Your son has moved more than $200,000 on these platforms in the last 18 months. Brandon gambles? According to these records, yes. And he is not good at it. Mr. Harrison pulled out more papers. And here is Kayla's report. She also has her secrets. 3 cards maxed out, $58,000. A loan of $40,000 she took out without telling her husband, as far as I could confirm with cross-referenced dates. And look at this. Invoices from clothing stores, designer purses, shoes, jewelry. She spent $32,000 last year just on clothes. I could not breathe. Mr. Harrison closed the folder. Let me summarize for you. Miss Diane, your son and daughter-in-law have a combined debt of $820,000. $820,000. Their combined monthly income is approximately $6,000. Their minimum debt payments are $7,400 a month. They are in the red. Every month, they sink deeper. That is why they want the penthouse. Exactly. But not to live in it. Look at this. I found emails. Your son contacted 3 real estate agencies 2 months ago, before the lunch where they ambushed you. He asked them how much they could get for a 4,000-square-foot penthouse in your area. The answers varied between $650,000 and $700,000. They are going to sell it. The plan was simple. You transfer the property to Kayla's name. They use it as collateral for a debt consolidation loan. If that does not work, they sell it directly. They pay their debts and probably keep whatever is left to start over somewhere else, far from their creditors. And the baby? The granddaughter? Mr. Harrison pulled out one last document, His expression was almost pitiful. "This is an ultrasound. I obtained it from medical records authorized by preliminary court order. Kayla is pregnant. That is real. But not 7 months along, as they said. 6 weeks. 6 weeks. Miss Diane, the pregnancy is barely beginning. All that acting at the restaurant, the bulging belly, the fake contractions, it was all theater. They bought a fake bump or used padding. I do not know. But they lied about the date to create urgency." I stared at the documents, unable to speak. My son. My only son. He had lied to me. He had manipulated me. He had planned to steal my home. He had used his unborn baby as a blackmail tool, and I had been about to give in. "Miss Diane, are you okay?" No, I was not okay. I felt like the world had flipped upside down. But at the same time, I felt something else. Something cold. Something hard. Something I had never felt toward my son before. Determination. "Mr. Harrison, what do we do now?" "Now, Miss Diane, we counterattack." Mr. Harrison spread the documents across his desk as if they were poker cards. Each paper was proof. Each number was another nail in the coffin of my son's credibility. $820,000 in debt. Messages to real estate agencies. A pregnancy of 6 weeks presented as 7 months. It was all there. It was all real. "What do you want to do, Miss Diane?" "We can go 2 ways. The first is to present all this evidence at the preliminary hearing, destroy their case, and end this. The second is more aggressive. We can countersue them for attempted fraud, family extortion, and moral damages. We could even seek to have criminal charges filed." I looked at the documents, the fine print, the red numbers, the dates that did not match up. My son's entire carefully constructed plan to rob me. I felt something break inside me. It was not my heart. That was already broken. It was something deeper. It was the image I held of Brandon, of the boy he had been, of the man I thought he was. "I do not want to destroy him legally," I said. My voice sounded strange, distant, but I want him to know I found out. I want to see him face the truth. I want everyone who called me selfish to know who really lied. Mr. Harrison nodded. "Then let's do this. I am going to request a mediation meeting before the hearing. It is standard procedure in family cases. We will cite them, their lawyer Miss Peterson, and put all the cards on the table. Literally. And if they refuse, they cannot. It is part of the legal process. If they refuse, that plays in our favor at the hearing. Perfect. Let's do it." Mr. Harrison started working immediately. That same afternoon, he sent the formal request. Mediation meeting. Date: Tuesday of next week. Place: neutral offices of the family court. Attendance mandatory. The next few days were the longest of my life. I went to work like a robot. I checked vitals, administered medications, smiled at patients. But my mind was elsewhere. I mentally rehearsed the moment. The meeting. The confrontation. What would Brandon say when he saw the evidence? Would he cry? Would he get angry? Would he deny everything? On Monday night, I could not eat dinner. My stomach burned. I made myself some chamomile tea and sat on the terrace. The city glowed below. Indifferent. Oblivious to my pain. "Robert," I thought, "I wish you were here. I wish you could tell me what to do." But Robert was not there, and I had to face this alone. Tuesday arrived like a guillotine. I dressed with care. A pearl gray suit I had bought for special occasions. I wanted to look dignified, strong, not like the victim they expected. Mr. Harrison had said appearance mattered, that I needed to project authority. I arrived at the courthouse at 2 in the afternoon. Mr. Harrison was waiting for me at the entrance. He carried a black leather briefcase. Inside were all the proofs, everything we needed to dismantle Brandon's lies. "Ready?" he asked. "No, but let's do it anyway." We entered the building. The hallways smelled of old paper and stale coffee. Our footsteps echoed on the marble floor. We went up to the 3rd floor. Mediation room number 7. The door was dark wood with a frosted glass window. Mr. Harrison opened it. Inside was a rectangular table, and there they were. Brandon was sitting on the right side. He wore a white shirt and black dress pants. He looked tired, deep circles under his eyes, hands clasped on the table. Kayla was beside him. She wore a beige dress that effectively made her look pregnant. But now I knew the truth. Now I knew that belly was a lie. Next to them was Miss Peterson, the lawyer. A woman in her 40s, hair pulled back in a tight bun, thin-rimmed glasses, serious expression. She had a folder in front of her. On the other side of the table were 3 empty chairs. We sat down, me in the middle, Mr. Harrison to my right. The chair to my left remained empty. It was for the mediator. Nobody spoke. The silence was thick, uncomfortable. Brandon would not look at me. He kept his eyes glued to the table. Kayla shot me a quick glance. There was something in her eyes. Fear? Guilt? The door opened. The mediator entered. An older man, bald, with a carefully trimmed white beard. He introduced himself as Mediator Davis. He sat to my left. Good afternoon. We are here to try to resolve this family conflict in a civilized manner before proceeding to judicial instances. I ask that we maintain respect, that we listen to all parties, and that we seek a mutually beneficial agreement. Miss Peterson raised her hand as if she were in school. Mr. Davis, my client and her husband have a very simple request. Miss Diane possesses a large property where she lives alone. My client is pregnant and needs adequate space to raise her daughter. They are requesting that the property be transferred as family support. It is an act of love, of generosity, of intergenerational responsibility. Intergenerational responsibility. What pretty words to cover up a robbery. Mr. Harrison did not flinch. He let Miss Peterson finish. Then he spoke in a calm voice. Mr. Davis, my client has no legal obligation to transfer her property, but beyond that, we have discovered relevant information that completely changes the context of this request. May I present evidence? Davis nodded. Please. Mr. Harrison opened his briefcase. He pulled out the folder, the same one I had seen in his office. He placed it on the table. The sound of paper against wood resonated like a gunshot. These are copies of credit reports for Mr. Brandon Miller and Mrs. Kayla Miller, legally obtained. They show a combined debt of $820,000. Miss Peterson blinked. Excuse me? Mr. Harrison pulled out the first document. He slid it toward the center of the table. Maxed out credit cards, personal loans, luxury vehicle financing, all documented here. Brandon shifted in his chair. His face was starting to turn red. Mr. Harrison continued. Furthermore, we have records of transactions on online betting platforms. Mr. Brandon has moved over $200,000 in virtual casinos in the last 18 months, with net losses of approximately $140,000. Kayla turned to look at Brandon. Her expression was one of shock. $140,000? Brandon did not answer. His fists were clenched on the table. But there is more, said Mr. Harrison. He pulled out another paper. This is an email from Mr. Brandon to a real estate agency, dated 2 months before the lunch where they ambushed my client. In it, he asks how much they could get for a 4,000-square-foot penthouse in the area where his mother lives. Miss Peterson took the document. Read it. Her face began to lose color. The plan was clear, continued Mr. Harrison. Obtain the property, sell it, pay debts. Miss Diane would never see that penthouse again, and probably would never see her son again. That is not true, shouted Brandon. He raised his voice for the first time. I love my mother. We just wanted help. We just wanted a better place for our baby. Mr. Harrison pulled out the last document. He placed it in front of Brandon with the delicacy of someone placing a bomb. Speaking of the baby, this is Miss Kayla's actual ultrasound, legally obtained. It shows a pregnancy of 6 weeks. Not 7 months as you claimed. 6 weeks. The silence that followed was absolute. Miss Peterson looked at the ultrasound. Then she looked at Kayla. Then back at the paper. 6 weeks, she repeated. Her voice was barely a whisper. Kayla started to cry. But this time it wasn't acting. It was real panic. Brandon, tell them it's not true. Tell them. Brandon said nothing. His head was bowed, shoulders slumped. Miss Peterson closed her folder. She stood up. Miss Kayla, Mr. Brandon, I need to speak with you in private. Now. The 3 of them left the room. Mediator Davis looked at Mr. Harrison and me. Then he looked at the documents scattered on the table. I believe this substantially changes the case, he said. Mr. Harrison nodded. I believe so, Mr. Davis. We waited. 5 minutes, 10, 15. I could hear muffled voices from the hallway. Kayla crying. Miss Peterson speaking in a stern tone. Brandon silent. Finally, the door opened. Miss Peterson entered alone. Her expression was hard, professional. But there was something else, something resembling shame. My clients wish to withdraw the lawsuit, she said, and they offer formal apologies to Miss Diane. Mr. Harrison looked at Davis. That is not enough. Miss Peterson swallowed hard. What else do you request? We want a signed agreement where they renounce any present or future right to my client's property. We want a public letter of apology, and we want them to cover legal fees. Miss Peterson nodded. Accepted. I will prepare the documents. She left again. I sat there, motionless. I had won. Technically I had won. But I felt no victory. I only felt a huge void. My son had betrayed me, and now the whole world would know. Mr. Harrison touched my arm gently. Miss Diane, are you okay? I lied. Yes, I am fine, but I wasn't, and we both knew it. Miss Peterson returned 20 minutes later with the documents, 3 copies. Formal waiver of any right to my property, commitment never to request transfer or sale again, total withdrawal of the lawsuit, and a clause that put a lump in my throat. Acknowledgement that the accusations of emotional abandonment were false and unfounded. Sign here, here, and here, said Miss Peterson, pointing to the lines. Her voice had lost all the arrogance from the beginning. Now she sounded tired, defeated. Brandon and Kayla entered behind her. Kayla's eyes were swollen. Running mascara formed dark lines on her cheeks. Brandon walked as if he were carrying the world on his shoulders. They sat down without looking at me. Mr. Brandon must sign first, said Mr. Harrison, then Miss Kayla. Brandon took the pen. His hand was shaking. He signed all 3 copies. Fast, as if the paper burned his fingers. Kayla did the same. Her signature was illegible, a desperate scribble. Davis reviewed the documents. Everything is in order. Now, Mr. Brandon and Miss Kayla wished to offer verbal apologies. Brandon looked up for the first time. He looked me straight in the eyes, and in that moment I saw everything. I saw the boy he had been, the son Robert had carried in his arms, the young man who had cried at his father's funeral, but I also saw the stranger, the liar, the manipulator who had tried to rob me. Mom, he started, his voice cracked. I'm sorry. I don't know what to say. Things got out of control. The debts, the stress. I thought if we had the penthouse we could sell it and start over. I thought you didn't need it as much as we did. It was stupid. It was unforgivable. I know. Kayla sobbed. Miss Diane, I am sorry too. It was my idea. The fake belly, the messages, all of it. I convinced Brandon. We were desperate. The banks are chasing us. Collectors call every day. I thought if we had a property we could breathe. But it was wrong. Everything was wrong. Silence filled the room. Everyone looked at me, waiting for me to say something, that I forgave them, that I said everything was fine, that we were family and could get through it. But I couldn't. Brandon, I said finally. My voice sounded strange, cold. For 33 years I gave you everything. Your father and I worked until exhaustion so you would have a better life. We paid for your college. We bought you cars. I gave you $70,000 of my life insurance when your father died. And now I find out the only thing you wanted was to take the last thing I have left. The only nest egg I built in my entire life. Mom, I am not finished. You turned my family against me. You made me feel guilty. You made me believe I was a bad grandmother. You used your unborn daughter as a manipulation tool. Do you have any idea what that did to me? Do you have any idea how many nights I cried, thinking I had failed as a mother? Brandon had tears in his eyes. I'm sorry. Mom, I truly am sorry. I don't want your apologies. Brandon, I want you to understand something. That penthouse is my security. It is my future. When I can no longer work. When my legs can no longer support 12-hour shifts. That place is the only thing guaranteeing I won't end up on the street. And you wanted to take it from me. My own son wanted to leave me with nothing. Miss Peterson coughed uncomfortably. Miss Diane, I understand your pain, but my clients have offered sincere apologies. They have signed the documents. Can we proceed to close this matter? Mr. Harrison intervened. One detail is missing: the public letter of apology. My clients posted false accusations against Miss Diane on social media. We need a public retraction, Kayla whimpered. Do we have to make it public? Yes, said Mr. Harrison firmly. You publicly damaged my client's reputation. The reparation must be public as well. Miss Peterson nodded. We will do it. I will draft the text. Davis closed his folder. Then this case is resolved. The lawsuit is withdrawn. The agreements are signed. I suggest all parties withdraw and reflect on what happened. We stood up. Brandon took a step toward me. Mom, can we talk? Alone. Mr. Harrison looked at me. I nodded. We left the room. We walked down the hall to a window overlooking the parking lot. Brandon leaned against the wall. He looked destroyed. Mom, I know I have no right to ask you for anything, but I need you to know that I do love you. I have always loved you. I made horrible decisions. I got into debt trying to give Kayla the life she wanted. I gambled thinking I could win enough to pay for everything. It was a spiral. And when I saw your penthouse, I thought it was the solution. I thought you had already lived your life and we deserved to have ours. So my life doesn't matter anymore? At 61, do I no longer deserve to have a home? I didn't mean that, but you said it. You called me selfish. You said your childhood was horrible, that you hated our apartment. Do you have any idea what those words did to me? Brandon covered his face with his hands. I was angry. I was scared. I said things I didn't mean. And now what are you going to do with your $820,000 in debt? I don't know. Declare bankruptcy, I guess. Lose the car. Probably lose the apartment too. Start from zero. I felt a stab of pain. Despite everything, he was still my son, but I couldn't save him anymore. I couldn't rescue him from his own decisions. Brandon, I am going to tell you something, and I want you to listen well. I love you. I will always love you. You are my only son, but I cannot continue being your safety net. I cannot continue sacrificing my life for your mistakes. You are 33 years old. It is time you face the consequences of your decisions. He nodded. Tears rolled down his cheeks. I know, Mom. I know. You are going to have a daughter. A real daughter. Not a 7-month lie. You are going to be a father. And you need to be better than you were as a son. You need to teach her what responsibility is. Honesty. Hard work. Things I tried to teach you, but apparently you didn't learn. You're right. When that girl is born, if you want her to be part of my life, you will have to earn it. Not with words, with actions. Show me you changed. Show me you can be a man of honor. I will, Mom. I promise. Don't promise me anything, Brandon. Just do it. I turned around and walked back to where Mr. Harrison was waiting. I didn't look back. I couldn't, because I knew if I saw my son crying one more time, my resolve would break, and I couldn't allow that. Mr. Harrison and I left the courthouse. The afternoon sun blinded me for a moment. I took a deep breath. Fresh air, free air. How does it feel? Asked Mr. Harrison. Empty, I replied. Victorious, but empty. It is normal. You just faced one of the hardest things a parent can face, setting limits with an adult child. But you did the right thing, Miss Diane. You protected what is yours. You protected yourself. I nodded. But I didn't feel strong. I felt broken, as if I had lost something I could never recover. Let's get a coffee, said Mr. Harrison. You need to process all this, and we still have to talk about the next steps. Next steps? The public letter, legal follow-up, and something else I need to discuss with you about your will. My will? After all this, Miss Diane, you need to protect yourself legally, just in case. We sat in a coffee shop near the courthouse. Mr. Harrison ordered an Americano. I ordered a mint tea I had no intention of drinking. I just needed to hold something in my hands, something to anchor me to reality, because my mind kept floating back to that mediation room, seeing my son sign those documents, hearing him ask for forgiveness with words that sounded hollow. Miss Diane, said Mr. Harrison while stirring his coffee, We need to talk about your current will. Do you have one? Yes. I made it 5 years ago. After buying the penthouse, everything goes to Brandon. Mr. Harrison nodded. Exactly. And after what just happened, do you still want it to be that way? The question hit me like cold water. I hadn't thought about it. During the entire mediation, during the entire confrontation, I hadn't thought about that. But now that he mentioned it, the answer was clear. No, I do not want him to inherit anything. Then, we need to modify your will. We can do it this very week. You can leave your estate to a charity, a foundation, or even create a trust that is active under certain conditions. What kind of conditions? For example, that Brandon can only access the inheritance if he demonstrates financial stability for a set period, or that he has paid off his debts, or you can simply exclude him completely and leave everything to charitable causes. I took a sip of tea. It was lukewarm and tasteless. I want to exclude him. Completely. I worked too hard for that penthouse for him to use it to pay off his casino bets. Mr. Harrison pulled out a notepad, started taking notes. Agreed. I will prepare the documents. Do you have any specific organization in mind? I thought for a moment. I had worked 35 years as a nurse. I had seen so much suffering, so many families without resources to pay for treatments. I wanted to go to a fund to help low-income families with medical expenses, specifically families with sick children. Perfect. That is very noble. I will include it in the will. He drank his coffee. I looked out the window. People walked by, hurried, each with their own lives, their own problems. Nobody knew I had just cut ties with my only son. Nobody knew my heart was in pieces. We also need to talk about the public letter, continued Mr. Harrison. Kayla must post a retraction on her social media. Do you want to review it before it is published? Yes. I want to make sure it is honest. I will draft it tonight. I will send it to you tomorrow for approval. Thank you, Mr. Harrison, for everything. I don't know what I would have done without you. He smiled sadly. I just did my job. But I am glad we were able to protect you. Your son underestimated your strength. Many people in your situation would have given in to emotional manipulation. I was about to. That night after lunch, I almost called Brandon to tell him I would sign. I almost believed I was a bad person. But you didn't. That requires immense courage. I don't feel brave, Mr. Harrison. I feel destroyed. It is normal. You just realized your son is not who you thought he was. That is devastating. But with time you will understand you did the right thing. That protecting your boundaries does not make you a bad mother. It makes you a woman with dignity. We paid the bill. Mr. Harrison walked me to my car in the parking lot. Before saying goodbye, he handed me a card. This is the number of a therapist, a colleague who specializes in family conflict. I think it would be good for you to talk to someone about all this. I took the card. I put it in my purse without looking at it. I wasn't ready for therapy. I wasn't ready for anything. I just wanted to go home. Lock myself in. Forget this day ever existed. I drove back to the penthouse on autopilot. The streets looked blurry. My eyes were full of tears I refused to let fall. Not here, not in public. When I got home, when I was alone, then I could crumble. I entered the building's garage, went up in the elevator. The mirror returned the image of a woman I didn't recognize. Pale, aged, broken. I opened the door to my penthouse. The silence welcomed me as always. But this time it was different. This time the silence wasn't peace. It was emptiness. It was absolute loneliness. I took off my shoes, left my purse on the sofa, walked to the terrace. The city stretched out in front of me, thousands of lit windows, thousands of lives that hadn't fallen apart today. And there, finally, I allowed myself to cry. I cried for Robert, for not being here to help me understand what we did wrong. I cried for Brandon, for the boy he had been and the man he turned into. I cried for myself, for having worked so hard, for having sacrificed so much, only to end up alone in an empty penthouse defending it from my own family. I sat on the terrace floor, back against the wall, legs folded against my chest, and I cried until I had no more tears left. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from an unknown number. I opened it. Aunt Diane, it's Carol. I heard about what happened at the mediation. Brandon told me everything. I can't believe he did something like that. I want to apologize for the messages I sent you. I didn't know the truth. I am very sorry. Another message. This one from Janet. Diane. I just spoke with Miss Peterson, the lawyer. She told me about Brandon's debts, about the fake pregnancy. I am in shock. I owe you a huge apology. I judged you without knowing the facts. Forgive me. The messages kept coming, one after another. Relatives who had called me selfish were now asking for forgiveness. Friends who had taken Brandon's side now wanted to explain they didn't know. But their apologies healed nothing. Because when I needed them, when I was being attacked and manipulated, none of them defended me. None asked for my side. Everyone assumed I was the villain. I deleted the messages without replying. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stayed on the sofa, staring at the ceiling. The house felt too big, too quiet. I had fought so hard to keep it. I had destroyed my relationship with my son for it. And now that I had it, I wondered if it had been worth it. At 3 a.m, my phone rang. It was Brandon. I let it go to voicemail. He called again, and again. On the 4th try, I answered. "What do you want, Brandon?" His voice sounded desperate. "Mom, Kayla left me. She went to her mother's house. She says she can't be with me after all this. She says I forced her to lie, that I ruined her life, and the banks are suing us. Tomorrow they are coming to take the car. The landlord gave us 30 days to vacate because we haven't paid rent in 3 months. Mom, I don't know what to do. I have no one else. Brandon, I cannot save you. Not anymore. I'm not asking you for money. I just need you to listen to me. I need my mother." I felt something break again in my chest. "I am your mother, Brandon. I always will be. But I cannot solve your problems. You have to face this alone." "I can't, Mom. It's too much." "Yes, you can. And you are going to do it. Because if you don't, that girl on the way isn't going to have a father. She's going to have another child. And you don't want that." He sobbed on the other end. "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry." "I know. But sorry doesn't pay debts. Sorry doesn't recover trust. You need to act. Seek professional help. Financial counseling. Support groups for gambling addicts. Do something, but do it yourself. I cannot do it for you." I hung up before my resolve faltered. I stayed there sitting in the dark. My son was destroyed. His life was falling apart. And I, his mother, had closed the door on him. Was this being strong, or was it being cruel? I didn't know. I didn't know anything anymore. The only thing I knew was that I had protected what was mine, that I had set limits, that I had refused to be a victim, and that, somehow, had to be enough. The following days were a fog. I went to work, did my routine, smiled at patients, but inside I was numb, as if my brain had decided to shut off emotions to function. Mr. Harrison sent me the draft of the public letter Kayla was to publish. I read it 3 times before approving it. It said, "A few weeks ago, I posted comments about a family conflict that I presented inaccurately and dishonestly. I accused my mother-in-law of being selfish and denying support to my family. The truth is, my husband and I had serious financial problems we were hiding. We attempted to emotionally manipulate her into transferring her property to us with intentions that were not honest. We exaggerated details of my pregnancy to create urgency. Everything I said was false. Diane Miller is a hard-working woman who deserves respect and peace. I publicly apologized to her and everyone who read my previous posts. It was honest. It was clear. It was humiliating for Kayla, but it was necessary. I approved the text. Mr. Harrison sent it to Miss Peterson. The next day, the post appeared on Kayla's Facebook. It had 143 comments in the first 2 hours. Most were surprise and disappointment. "I can't believe you did something like that. How shameful to manipulate your own family. Poor mother-in-law. She must be devastated." Some comments defended Kayla. "We all make mistakes. Debts make us do desperate things." But the majority were critical, harsh, ruthless. I closed the app. I didn't want to read anymore. I felt no satisfaction. I only felt sadness. Because all this meant my family was broken, that things would never be like before. A week later, Mr. Harrison summoned me to his office to sign the new will. I arrived early. The secretary offered me coffee, which I declined. I was too nervous. Changing a will felt so final, so definitive, like writing the epitaph of my relationship with Brandon. Mr. Harrison received me with his usual professionalism. I have the documents ready. I reviewed them 3 times. Everything is in order. Your penthouse and any other assets you possess at the time of your death will go to the Children's Medical Support Fund. Brandon is completely excluded as an heir, and if he tries to contest it, he won't be able to. The will is clear. It is notarized, and we have documentation of everything that occurred. Any judge will see you made this decision in full possession of your faculties and with justified reasons. I signed on the indicated lines. My hand trembled slightly. Each signature was a goodbye. Goodbye to the idea that Brandon would one day inherit what I built. Goodbye to the fantasy of a united family. Goodbye to the son I thought I had. Done, said Mr. Harrison, putting the documents in a manila envelope. Now you are legally protected. Whatever happens, thank you, Mr. Harrison. Not just for this, for everything, for believing me, for helping me see the truth. It is my job, but it is also an honor to defend people like you, people who deserve justice. I left his office with the envelope under my arm, the will. The physical proof that I had cut ties with my only son. I sat in my car in the parking lot. I didn't start the engine. I just stayed there, looking at the envelope. Would Robert forgive me? Would he understand why I did this? Or would he think I was too hard on our son? I would never know. That night, while making dinner, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I looked through the peephole. It was a woman I didn't know, 30-something, hair tied back, jeans, and a cream-colored sweater. I opened cautiously, leaving the chain on. Miss Diane Miller? Yes. Who are you? My name is Faith. I am a debt counselor. Your son Brandon hired me to help him restructure his finances. He asked me to come talk to you. I do not want to talk about my son's finances. She raised her hands in a conciliatory gesture. I understand. I just want you to know Brandon is taking this seriously. He enrolled in a 12-step program for gambling addicts. He got a second part-time job. He is selling everything he can sell to pay debts. Kayla went back to him on the condition he seeks professional help. They are trying to rebuild. I am happy for them. Faith nodded. He didn't ask me to ask you for money. He just wanted you to know he is changing, that he understands what he did, that he doesn't expect your forgiveness, but wants to be better. I closed the door gently. I leaned against it. Brandon was trying to change. Part of me wanted to believe it, wanted to run to him and tell him everything was fine, that we could start over. But the wiser part, the part that had learned to set limits, knew I couldn't do it. Not yet, maybe never. Months passed. Winter came. The penthouse felt colder despite the heating. I worked. I slept. I existed. My hospital co-workers noticed something had changed in me. You are quieter, Diane. Is everything okay? I told them yes, that it was just the tiredness of age. In March, I received a package. It had no return address. I opened it with curiosity. Inside was a handwritten letter and an ultrasound photo. The letter said, "Mom, I know I have no right to write to you. I know I broke your trust in an unforgivable way. But I want you to know something. Kayla and I are trying hard. I have already paid off $40,000 in debt. I stopped gambling. I go to therapy twice a week. We are living in a smaller, cheaper apartment. It isn't much, but it is honest. And our daughter, your granddaughter, is going to be born in 2 months. Her name is going to be Lily. Like your mother, I thought you would want to know. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just hope someday you can meet her. I love you, Mom. I will always love you. Brandon." I looked at the ultrasound photo. There she was, my real granddaughter. Not the 7-month lie. This was true. A real 7-month baby. A little person who was going to be born into a complicated world with imperfect parents trying to be better. I cried. But this time it wasn't pain. It was hope mixed with fear. Hope that maybe Brandon really was changing. Fear that it was another manipulation. I put the letter in a drawer. I didn't reply. I wasn't ready. In May, my phone rang on a Thursday afternoon. It was a number I didn't recognize. I answered, "Miss Diane? It's Kayla. I know you don't want to talk to me. I get it. But I needed to tell you something. Lily was born this morning. 7 pounds, 1 ounce, healthy and perfect. Brandon is crying with happiness. Me too. And we both want you to know that if you ever want to meet her, the door is open. No pressure, no expectations. We just want you to know you have a granddaughter who will someday want to know who her grandmother is." My voice cracked. "Congratulations, Kayla. I am glad she is healthy. Thank you. And Diane, I am so sorry for everything I did. Truly. Every day I live with that guilt. I wish I could turn back time." I hung up. I sat on the sofa. Lily, my granddaughter, she was born. She existed. She was real. And I wasn't there. 2 weeks passed. I couldn't stop thinking about that baby. About Lily, what she looked like, who she resembled. If she would have Brandon's eyes or Robert's nose. I caught myself looking at old photos of when Brandon was a baby, imagining what his daughter would be like. One night I made a decision. I grabbed my phone. I dialed Brandon's number. It rang 4 times. He answered with a cautious voice. "Mom. Hello, Brandon. I want to meet Lily. If you are still willing." Silence. Then a sob. "Yes, Mom. Yes, of course. Whenever you want. Wherever you want. Tomorrow. At the park near the hospital, at 3. We will be there. Mom, thank you. Thank you for giving me this chance. It isn't for you, Brandon. It is for her. It is for Lily. I know. And I respect that." I hung up. My heart beat fast. Was I doing the right thing? Or was I opening a door that should stay closed? I didn't know, but I knew something. That Lily wasn't to blame for anything. That she deserved to have a grandmother. And that I deserved to meet my granddaughter. The rest remained to be seen. I arrived at the park 15 minutes early. I sat on a bench under a tree that provided shade. My hands were sweating. My stomach was a knot of nerves. I had mentally rehearsed this moment dozens of times. What would I say? How would I act? But now that I was here, everything felt unreal. I saw them arrive at 3 o'clock sharp. Brandon pushed a light gray stroller. Kayla walked beside him. They both looked different, thinner, more tired, but also more serious, as if they had aged years in these months. I stood up. My legs trembled slightly. Brandon stopped a few feet away. "Mom, thanks for coming." I nodded without saying anything. My gaze went straight to the stroller, to the small pink blanket covering the baby. Kayla approached first. She gently pushed the stroller toward me. "Do you want to hold her?" My heart beat so loud I thought everyone could hear it. I got closer. I looked down. And there she was. Lily, my granddaughter. She was perfect. Dark, abundant hair. Round, rosy cheeks. Eyes closed in deep sleep. She had small, perfect hands peeking out from the blanket. One of them moved slightly, as if she were dreaming. Something inside me broke and healed at the same time. "May I?" I asked with a trembling voice. "Of course," said Kayla. She leaned in and lifted the baby carefully. She placed her in my arms. Lily's weight was perfect, warm, real. I cradled her instinctively. My arms remembered how to hold a baby, even though it had been 33 years since the last time I held Brandon like this. Lily moved. She opened her eyes for a moment. They were dark, deep. She looked at me without really seeing me, then yawned and closed them again. Tears rolled down my cheeks without permission. "She is beautiful," I whispered. "She is perfect. She looks like you, Mom," said Brandon. "She has your nose. And your mouth." I looked at my son, really looked at him. He looked haggard. Deep circles, hair shorter. His clothes were simple, clean but old. He no longer wore the expensive watch I had seen him with before. He no longer had that air of arrogance. He looked humble, broken. But there was also something new in his eyes, something resembling determination. "How are you doing?" I asked while gently rocking Lily. Kayla spoke first. "We are okay, better than we deserve. Brandon is working 16 hours a day between his 2 jobs. I picked up my design projects from home so I could take care of Lily. It's not easy, but it is honest. We sold everything," added Brandon. The big TV, the expensive furniture, my video game collection, everything. We have paid off $82,000 in debt. We have $738,000 to go, but we are making progress. $738,000. The figure was overwhelming. But the fact that he said it clearly, without shame, without excuses, meant something. And the betting? I asked directly. I have been clean for 137 days, answered Brandon. I go to meetings 3 times a week. I have a sponsor, a man who went through the same thing 10 years ago. He helps me when I feel the temptation. And I feel it, Mom, every day. But I haven't bet a single dollar since the mediation. I am glad, I said. And I meant it. We sat on the bench. I was still holding Lily. Kayla and Brandon sat across from me. The silence was uncomfortable, but not hostile. It was the silence of people who had said terrible things and now didn't know how to rebuild. Mom, started Brandon, I know I can't undo what I did. I know I broke something between us that maybe will never be repaired. But I want you to know I am changing. Not for you, not to regain your forgiveness. I am doing it for her, for Lily, because I don't want her to grow up with an addict, lying father. I want to be someone she can be proud of. His voice cracked on the last words. I am sorry too, added Kayla. Every day I regret what I did. The lies, the fake belly, the messages. I was cruel. I was manipulative. And the worst is I convinced Brandon it was okay, that you had the obligation to help us. I was wrong about everything. I looked at Lily asleep in my arms, this innocent little person who didn't ask to be born into this complicated family, who didn't ask to have parents with debts and problems, who just wanted to be loved and cared for. Brandon, Kayla, I said finally, I don't know if someday I will be able to forgive you completely. What you did hurt me in a way I cannot describe. It made me doubt everything, my worth as a mother, my right to have something of my own. You made me feel guilty for protecting myself. We know, whispered Brandon. But I continued, I see you are trying. And that counts. It doesn't erase what happened. But it counts. And for her, for Lily, I am willing to try to rebuild something. It won't be like before. It probably will never be like before. But I can try to be her grandmother. I can try to be in her life. Kayla started crying. Thank you, Diane. Thank you. We don't deserve your generosity, but I promise we won't waste it. It is not generosity, I clarified. It is for her. Just for her. We understand, said Brandon. And we respect it. Lily woke up at that moment. She opened her little eyes and looked at me. This time her gaze stayed fixed on me longer, as if she were trying to understand who I was. I smiled at her. Hello, little one. I am your grandma. I know we don't know each other yet, but we are going to get to know each other. I promise. She made a little noise, something between a coo and a yawn, then went back to sleep. We spent the next hour in the park, talking about simple things, about how Lily slept, about her feeding schedule, about how Brandon almost fainted when they cut the umbilical cord. Normal things, family things. We didn't talk about the penthouse. We didn't talk about the debts. We didn't talk about the will that excluded them. We just talked about the baby. And for the first time in months, I felt something resembling peace. When it was time to leave, I returned Lily to their arms carefully. Kayla settled her in the stroller. Can we see each other again? Asked Brandon. Maybe next week? Yes, I replied, but on one condition. Which one? That you are honest with me, always. If you have problems, tell me. If you are struggling, tell me. No more lies, no more manipulation, total honesty, or there is no possible relationship. We promise, said Brandon. I watched them walk away. The small family walking back to their old, battered car. Brandon pushing the stroller, Kayla by his side, both leaning in every so often to look at their daughter. And I realized something. I didn't have to forgive them completely to be able to move forward. I didn't have to forget what they did to be in Lily's life. I could keep my boundaries and still be her grandmother. I could protect my assets and still love her. One thing didn't exclude the other. That night, in my penthouse, I took out the letter Brandon had sent me months ago. I reread it. Then I took out a sheet of paper and started writing. Not a letter to Brandon, a letter to Lily. for her to read when she was older, so she would know who I was, what I had lived, why I made the decisions I made. I wrote about Robert, about my 35 years of work, about the penthouse, about the betrayal, about the difficult forgiveness, about boundaries, about dignity. I wrote until dawn. When I finished, I folded the letter and put it in an envelope. On the outside I wrote, "For Lily, when she turns 18, someday she would understand. Someday she would know why her grandmother had to be strong, why she had to say no, why love sometimes means setting limits. And I hoped when that day came, she would be proud of me." A year passed, a year of careful visits, of slow reconstruction, of firm boundaries but constant presence. I watched Lily take her first steps in the park. I heard her say her first word, Dada. I was there when she turned 1 and we blew out her first candle together. Brandon kept his word. He worked tirelessly. He paid off $200,000 more in debt. He had been clean from gambling for a year and 4 months. Kayla changed too. She stopped buying unnecessary things. She focused on her work, on her family, on rebuilding the trust she had destroyed. But I kept my boundaries. The will remained unchanged. The penthouse remained solely mine. And although I saw them regularly, I never gave them money again. Not a single dollar. When Brandon needed help paying for a car repair, I gave him the number of a cheap mechanic. When Kayla mentioned they wanted to buy new furniture, I suggested thrift stores. I loved them, but I wasn't their lifeguard. Not anymore. And something strange happened. The firmer I was with my boundaries, the more they respected me. Brandon stopped asking me for things. Kayla stopped hinting at needs. They simply accepted that I was their mother and grandmother, but not their bank. And our relationship improved because of it. One October afternoon, exactly 18 months after the mediation, Brandon appeared at my door unannounced. He was carrying Lily in his arms. She was already a year and 5 months old. Long, curly hair, huge, curious eyes. "Mom, can we talk?" asked Brandon. I let him in. Lily ran toward me, shouting Grandma with her high-pitched little voice. I picked her up and kissed her on the forehead. She smelled like baby soap and cookies. We sat in the living room. Brandon looked nervous. He was fidgeting with his hands. "What's wrong?" I asked. He took a deep breath. "Mom, we finished paying all the debts. All of them. $820,000. It took us a year and a half, but we did it. We are completely free." I felt something expand in my chest. Really? Really? "Here are the documents." He pulled out a folder. Inside were letters from banks, final payment confirmations. Everything was settled. Every card, every loan, every debt. Brandon, that is. "I don't know what to say. I am proud of you." His eyes filled with tears. "Thank you. Mom, it wasn't easy. There were nights I thought we wouldn't make it, that it was too much. But we did it. And I want you to know something. All this change started that day at the mediation. When you set limits on me, when you told me no, it was the first time in my life someone forced me to face the consequences of my actions. And although it hurt, although I got angry, although I hated you for a moment, it was what I needed. I didn't do it to hurt you," I said softly. "I told you no because I love you, because I knew if I saved you again, you would never learn. I know now. And I thank you for it, because look what I achieved. Look what we are now. Lily has a father who works honestly, who doesn't gamble, who is present. And it is all because you were strong enough to let me fall and learn to get up alone." Lily squirmed in my arms. I put her down, and she ran toward her favorite toy I kept for her visits, a lavender stuffed bunny. Brandon continued, "Mom, I know you changed your will. I know I am no longer your heir. And that's okay. I understand. I respect it. I didn't come to ask you to change it. I just came to tell you I am sorry, that I will spend the rest of my life showing you I can be the son you deserve, not for your money, not for your penthouse, just because you are my mother and I love you." I wiped the tears rolling down my cheeks. "Brandon, seeing you change like this, seeing you grow, seeing you be a good father to Lily, that is worth more than any inheritance. And I want you to know something. If you continue on this path, if you continue being honest and hardworking, maybe in a few years we can talk about the will. I promise you nothing, but I don't rule it out either. Really? Really, but it has to be for the right reasons. Not because you feel you deserve my assets, but because you have demonstrated for years that you are responsible, that you can take care of what you have, that you aren't going to destroy in weeks what took me decades to build. I promise, Mom. And this time, it is not an empty promise. It is a real commitment. We hugged. It was the first real hug we shared since before the mediation. It wasn't perfect. There was still pain. There were still scars. But it was genuine, Lily shouted from the floor. Grandma. Look. She had built a tower with her blocks. How beautiful, my love, I told her. You are very smart. She smiled with her whole mouth. That smile only children can give. Pure, without malice, without hidden agendas. Brandon stood up to leave. Kayla was waiting downstairs. They had to go to the grocery store. Normal life of a normal family. I walked them to the door. Before leaving, Brandon turned around. Mom, one last thing. We are saving. To buy our own house. It is going to take years, but we are going to achieve it. And when we do, I want you to come to the housewarming. I want you to see that your son finally learned the value of hard work. I will be there, I promised him. I watched them leave. Lily waved goodbye with her little hand from her father's arms. I closed the door and stood in my living room. In my penthouse. In this space, I defended with tooth and nail. And I realized something. I didn't regret anything. I didn't regret saying no. I didn't regret setting limits. I didn't regret protecting what was mine. Because in the end, that decision didn't just save me. It also saved Brandon. It gave him the chance to be better, to grow, to become the man his father would have wanted him to be. That night, I sat on the terrace. The city shone as always. I took a glass of wine and looked at the stars. Robert, I whispered to the wind, I know you aren't here, but I need you to know something. I did it. I defended our dream. And although it cost a lot, although it hurt terribly, I think I did the right thing. Our son is changing. Our granddaughter is growing, and I am at peace. The wind blew softly, like an answer, like an approval. I thought of all the women going through the same thing, who are being manipulated by their own children, who are feeling guilt for protecting what is theirs, who believe being good mothers means sacrificing themselves until they disappear. And I wanted to tell them something. I wanted to tell them that setting limits does not make you a bad mother, that saying no when necessary is an act of love, that protecting your future isn't selfishness, it is survival, that you can love your family and still put yourself first, that being a mother doesn't mean being an eternal victim. I finished my wine. I got up, entered my penthouse, my home, my fortress, the place I built with 35 years of honest work, and I smiled, because I had won. Not just the legal battle, I had won something much more important. I had won my dignity, my self-respect, my peace, and nobody, not even my own son, could take that away from me ever again. Sometimes true love means saying no. It means setting limits. It means letting the people you love face the consequences of their decisions. And although it hurts, although you break, although everyone judges you, in the end, it is the right thing. In the end, it is the only way we can all grow. In the end, it is the only way we can all be free.